So Christine's all over this, Joe Habucky. Do you have any interest in, or are you going to be looking around?
What, SpaceX?
Wondering.
SpaceX stuff?
Like,
SpaceX still up there?
Space. This is a very interesting, and Christine is big on it. You got to pull the mic from
Yeah,
Joe.
tell me all about it.
You're very big on this.
Well, I just have an appreciation for all of this.
Well, you're
nerdy
Air Force.
She
space
was in the
stuff.
Air Force.
She was in the Air Force.
Well, and I grew up in Miami, and every time there was a launch, anything Cape Canaveral, we went to Cape Canaveral several times, and anything Cape Canaveral drew our interest. I remember eating, freeze-dried ice cream for the first time, and I think after that I was hooked on all things space exploration. So, anyway, the Dragon is back now, and it has a
and exactly what that is. That's a space exploration vessel, right?
Right. SpaceX is the company that Elon Musk is behind. He's also behind other.
I think he's involved, and I don't know if you saw this, where they're talking about the high-speed rail from L.A. to San Francisco or San Diego, one or the other. Anyway, the thing goes, you could be there in like 43 minutes, and it's in a tube, and you're traveling at 178 miles an hour. It's really incredible. But this type of technology is privately inspired, which is a really big deal.
Right. And SpaceX is not only bringing items, NASA's contracting with SpaceX, a private contractor, to bring stuff to the International Space Station, but also now to bring stuff back. And that's what's of interest in this mission, is the stuff that was brought back includes biological specimens from Scott Kelly, who was in space for a year. His twin brother has been on Earth, and they're going to study Scott's specimens versus those of his identical twin brother, who's also an astronaut who's been here on Earth. His identical twin brother is married to Gabrielle Giffords, the former congresswoman who was shot.
Eben Brown on the line right now from Fox News. This is big. This shows how we thought that when NASA was really getting cut, the space, the Challenger, the shuttle program was cut back, that this was going to be the end of exploration. But really, it's being sent to the private side, and that seems to be, we're seeing results.
Well, this has been sort of the story all along, and the thing is that this really isn't exploration. It's a trucking route, and NASA had said, look, we don't want to spend taxpayer money on taxpayer-funded vehicles of exploration, like the space shuttle, on trucking routes. We can. That's not a good use of the money, not a good use of the resources, and we could do better. So the money, therefore, money has been appropriated to develop a new exploration vehicle that's in the works. It's called the Space Launch System. That is what will take astronauts to an asteroid and Mars. But for now, we are relying on the U.S. private sector to do cargo runs, and soon to actually run astronauts to and from the space station.
Wow.
One of the companies that is doing the cargo runs and will be doing the human runs is SpaceX, which is owned by Elon Musk. He's the developer of Tesla automobiles, not to mention PayPal. And not only have they shown that they can run cargo up and down in a reusable spacecraft, they've also been able to reuse their rockets, meaning that the rocket that takes the spacecraft up doesn't necessarily have to fall back into the ocean and be lost. It can actually land itself on a target and be recovered and reused. This is an amazing achievement, something that NASA had never really done. And again, brings the cost of going to and from low Earth orbit way, way, way down. And so that's good for taxpayers, and it's also good for other private sector entities that want access to space.
Eben, I have to ask, this is kind of like an interstellar Uber, I guess, but my question is, when we talk about the taxpayer money, they are paying Elon Musk's company, right? And I would imagine that whatever Musk puts into
money.
It, he's investing. My question is, how can he do it for so much cheaper than if NASA were to do it? Because they're still paying for it. It's still taxpayer money.
But when NASA does it, or does anything, like any government agency, when it comes to finances, things must be sent out to bid. Things can't necessarily be decided by one person. You have to employ certain workforces. and you have to. And NASA has always had to sort of develop its own technology. Well, in this case, the development had already really been done by NASA.
Yeah.
Now they've
Yeah.
moved on beyond some things and have gone forward with it. But most of the development has already been done, so that cost has been erased. The workforces are either internal to SpaceX or are through subcontractors without having to open things up to a long bidding process that is congressionally overseen. So that brings down the cost. And now this ability to reuse the rockets brings the cost down even more. And so that's why a private company is able to do it. It's basically an efficiency issue.
Okay.
And when you look through history, really, this is a throwback to looking at when we as a country invented, and much of that was private. Much of that was done by people that were on their own. And
Sure. It's a throwback to that. It's also a throwback, if you remember in your history books, after taxpayer-funded vessels of exploration kind of figured out how to get across the Atlantic and back to Europe, what did we do? Or I should say, what did the Europeans do? They started to hire private companies to do the transportation to and from the New World colonies because it was cheaper. So we had companies like the British West Indies companies, the Dutch West Indies companies, and obviously, these companies had some controversial roles in history with regard to slave trade and whatnot, and certainly that's not happening now.
Not to mention Titanic. I mean, things do happen, but at the end of the day,
Titanic was a commercial, passenger ship. But these new companies, SpaceX being one of them, Orbital ATK is another one. Boeing is involved here. They are doing what companies like the British West Indies companies once did, and that is providing the transportation of cargo and people at a much cheaper rate.
Interesting stuff. Eben Brown, Fox News, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.